On an ordinary Tuesday morning in Manhattan, Marcus Webb typed 3 words meant for his son at home. I miss you. One distracted second later, the message landed in the wrong inbox. Diana Hartwell's inbox. The CEO who had fired a senior director for arriving 3 minutes late to a board meeting. Before Marcus could unsend it, the screen flashed. Read. 8:47 a.m. His chest tightened, a cold wave spreading from his core to his fingertips. He stared at the notification, willing it to disappear, to become something else, anything else. But the timestamp remained, mocking him with its permanence. 3 words, 13 characters, one catastrophic mistake. 47 floors above him, Diana Hartwell read the message for the 3rd time. I miss you. 3 simple words, 3 words she hadn't heard in 5 years, not since the night Nathan died. Her hands trembled as she held the phone, the device suddenly feeling too heavy, too real. She set it down on the polished mahogany desk and pressed her palms flat against the cool surface, steadying herself against the rush of memory. Nathan. 8 years old. Gap-toothed smile. Soccer cleats always untied, no matter how many times she'd shown him the proper knot. The last text she'd sent him. I miss you, sweetheart. See you soon. He'd replied with a heart emoji. 3 hours later, the hospital called. 5 years. 5 years of burying that pain beneath quarterly reports and hostile takeover negotiations and 16-hour workdays. 5 years of becoming the woman who fired people for being late because tardiness meant carelessness and carelessness meant loss. 5 years of never, ever allowing herself to feel those 3 words again. And now they appeared on her screen, from someone she didn't even remember meeting. Marcus Webb. She pulled up his personnel file. Financial analyst, budget division, 3 years with the company. The HR notes were sparse. Widower, single father, 1 dependent, age 7. Diana stood, her decision already made before conscious thought could intervene. She needed to see him. Needed to understand who would send those words, whether they knew what they were doing, what they were resurrecting. The walk to the elevator felt longer than usual, her heels clicking against the marble with a rhythm that reminded her of Nathan's sneakers on their hardwood floors. She pressed the button for the 22nd floor and watched the numbers descend, each one bringing her closer to an answer she wasn't sure she wanted. The elevator doors opened. 82 employees sat at their desks in the open-plan office, a sea of identical workstations arranged in precise rows. The moment Diana stepped onto the floor, the ambient noise evaporated. Fingers froze over keyboards. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the air conditioning seemed to quiet itself in deference to her presence. She walked slowly, deliberately, scanning the nameplates on each cubicle partition. Johnson, Martinez, Brennan. Finally, Webb. The man behind the desk had dark hair starting to gray at the temples, broad shoulders hunched slightly forward as he typed. He wore a blue button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, a coffee stain on the collar that he probably hadn't noticed when he dressed in the dark that morning. Diana stopped 3 feet from his desk. The silence around them grew dense, oppressive. She could feel the weight of 82 sets of eyes watching, waiting, already constructing narratives that would spread through the building before lunch. Marcus looked up. His face went pale. Mr. Webb. His throat worked as he swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Diana leaned down, close enough to see the fine lines around his eyes, close enough to catch the faint scent of drugstore aftershave and exhaustion. She kept her voice low, meant only for him. Say it again. Confusion flickered across his features, followed by dawning horror as understanding set in. Miss Hartwell, that message wasn't meant for you. I was texting my son. I'm so sorry, it was an accident. An accident. Diana straightened, adjusting the cuff of her sleeve with slow precision. She looked at the phone face down on his desk, then back at his eyes. Brown eyes, she noticed. Tired eyes. Honest eyes that held something she recognized because she saw it in her own mirror every morning. The particular exhaustion of someone carrying too much alone. An accident. She let the words hang between them, neither confirmation nor accusation. Interesting. She turned and walked back toward the elevator, each step measured and unhurried. Behind her, she could feel the release of collective breath, the resumption of life after a pause that had felt eternal. But she didn't look back. Couldn't look back, because if she did, if she allowed herself one more glance at the man who had accidentally sent her the words that used to mean home and safety and love, she might not make it back to her office before the carefully constructed walls came down. The elevator ride up felt different from the ride down. 47 floors of wondering why those 3 words from a stranger hurt more than they should. Why seeing a father's guilt about texting his son during work hours felt like looking through a window at the life she'd lost. Marcus waited until the elevator doors closed before he exhaled. His hands shook as he placed them flat on his desk, trying to ground himself in something solid. Around him, the office remained suspended in that awful quiet, everyone pretending to work while actually watching him from the corners of their eyes. His phone buzzed. A text from Jack. Dad, when are you coming home? The guilt twisted deeper. Jack had been with Mrs. Sullivan since 6:30 that morning. Marcus had promised pancakes for breakfast, but there had been no time. There was never enough time. He was trying to be both parents, trying to fill a space meant for 2 people, and failing at it daily in ways large and small. He typed back quickly, "Soon, buddy. Love you." The spreadsheet on his screen blurred. Marcus rubbed his eyes and forced himself to focus on the numbers. Q4 projections, revenue forecasts, cash flow analysis. The familiar patterns usually brought comfort, a sense of control in a life that often felt chaotic. But today, the numbers swam together, meaningless. What had Diana Hartwell been thinking when she walked over here? What did she plan to do? Fire him for inappropriate communication? Report him to HR for violating some policy about personal messages during work hours? Marcus had been with Hartwell Global Investments for 3 years, and in all that time, he'd never once spoken directly to the CEO. She existed in a different stratosphere, a different reality entirely from his mid-level analyst position. By noon, the whispers had started. Marcus heard them in the break room as he poured his 3rd cup of mediocre coffee. 2 women from accounting stood near the vending machines, their voices pitched low, but not quite low enough. Did you see her face when she was standing at his desk? I couldn't tell if she was angry or, I don't know, something else. Why would she even care about some random analyst? Marcus kept his expression neutral and left without adding sugar to his coffee. The bitter taste seemed appropriate. Kyle Brennan was waiting by the coffee machine when Marcus returned. Kyle had joined the company 8 months ago, all sharp suits and sharper ambition. He'd positioned himself as the rising star of the budget division, the young talent that management should watch. At 34, he was 3 years younger than Marcus and aggressively aware of it. So, Kyle crossed his arms, a half-smile playing at his lips. What did you say to her? Marcus poured his coffee. Nothing. Come on, man. She doesn't just walk over to someone's desk for nothing. Kyle's voice carried just far enough for the three other people in the break room to hear. "You two got something going on?" Marcus met his eyes directly. "No." Kyle raised his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, I'm just saying. People are curious. She's never spoken to any of us like that. Makes you wonder what's so special about you." Marcus didn't respond. He took his coffee and walked out, leaving Kyle's knowing laughter echoing behind him. The afternoon crawled by in a haze of half-finished tasks and mounting anxiety. Every time his phone buzzed, Marcus checked it with a mixture of hope and dread. Hoping it was just Jack, dreading that it might be HR. By 5 o'clock, his shoulders ached from tension and his eyes burned from staring at the screen without really seeing it. He packed up quickly, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the elevator. The ride down was silent except for the low hum of machinery and his own heartbeat loud in his ears. When the doors opened to the lobby, he stepped out and nearly collided with someone. Diana Hartwell stood just outside the elevator bay, her coat draped over one arm, her expression as unreadable as it had been that morning. For a second, neither of them moved. Then she stepped aside, gesturing for him to pass. "Mr. Webb." Marcus stopped. "Yes?" She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, he saw something other than cold efficiency in her eyes. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Pain, maybe, or recognition, or something else he couldn't name. "Next time, be more careful who you text." Then she walked past him, through the glass doors, and into the fading daylight. Marcus stood there for a long moment, trying to make sense of what had just happened. But there was no sense to be made, no pattern he could discern from the data points of this strange, terrible day. He shook his head and pushed through the doors toward the parking lot. Jack was waiting when Marcus finally made it home at 6:45, sitting cross-legged on the couch with his drawing pad balanced on his knees. Mrs. Sullivan had left a note on the counter in her neat cursive. "He ate, behaved. See you tomorrow, Pat." Marcus folded the note and slipped it into his pocket, then sat down beside his son. Jack smelled like the lavender soap Mrs. Sullivan kept in her bathroom, and the apple juice he drank too much of when Marcus wasn't watching. "What are you drawing?" Jack held up the paper. It was a house, lopsided and colorful, with two stick figures standing in front of it, one tall, one small. A yellow sun in the corner with rays that looked like eyelashes. "That's us." Jack pointed to each figure in turn. "You and me." Marcus's throat tightened. "Yeah, buddy. That's us." Jack leaned against his father's side, warm and solid and real. For a few minutes, the world outside didn't matter. The whispers at work, the cryptic words from Diana Hartwell, the constant pressure of being everything Jack needed. All of it faded into background noise. But later, after Jack had gone to bed, Marcus sat alone in the kitchen with a cup of coffee gone cold and the nagging feeling that something fundamental had shifted. He didn't know what it was or what it meant, but he knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow, the whispers would be louder. The whispers were louder the next morning. Marcus felt them before he even reached his desk. Eyes tracked him across the floor. Conversations stopped mid-sentence as he passed, then resumed in hushed tones the moment he was out of earshot. He set his bag down, logged into his computer, and tried to ignore the weight of it all pressing down on his shoulders. By mid-morning, the rumors had taken shape and texture. Someone had seen Diana speak to him in the lobby yesterday. Someone else swore she had smiled at him, which was impossible because Diana Hartwell didn't smile. A third person claimed they'd been texting back and forth for weeks, that the message yesterday wasn't an accident at all, but part of some ongoing secret correspondence. Marcus heard fragments of these stories as he moved through the office, each version more distorted than the last. He kept his head down and focused on his work. The quarterly report was due by end of week, and he still had 2 sections to finish. The numbers were straightforward enough, but his mind kept drifting. Every time someone walked past his desk, he tensed, half expecting HR to call him in for a disciplinary meeting that never came. Instead, the silence grew heavier, more oppressive. It was the silence of judgment, of speculation, of colleagues who had suddenly decided he was something other than what he'd been yesterday. At lunch, Marcus ate alone in his car. It was easier that way. No questions, no stares, no need to pretend everything was fine. He sat in the parking lot with a turkey sandwich he barely tasted, watching people come and go through the glass doors of the building. Most of them were laughing, talking, living lives that didn't hinge on a single misplaced text message. Marcus envied them. When he returned to his desk, there was a note stuck to his monitor, handwritten, unsigned. Careful who you get close to. Some people don't deserve the attention. Marcus crumpled it and tossed it in the trash without a second thought, but the message stayed with him, a splinter lodged somewhere he couldn't reach. Kyle Brennan appeared at his cubicle just before 3, leaning against the partition with his arms crossed and that same knowing smirk from yesterday still fixed on his face. Kyle had a way of taking up space that made Marcus want to push back, but he didn't. He just looked up and waited. Heard you had another run-in with the boss. Lobby, right after work. Kyle's tone was casual, as if they were discussing the weather. Marcus didn't answer. He turned back to his screen, hoping Kyle would take the hint and leave. He didn't. Look, man, I'm just trying to help. Kyle's voice shifted to something that might have sounded sincere to someone who didn't know better. People are talking. You know how it is. Once the gossip starts, it's hard to stop. And if it gets back to her that people think you two have something going on, well, that's not going to end well for you. Marcus's jaw tightened. He saved his work, then turned to face Kyle fully. There's nothing going on. I sent a text to the wrong person, that's it. Kyle raised an eyebrow. Sure. But does everyone else believe that? Before Marcus could respond, Kyle straightened and glanced toward the executive wing. Just saying, you might want to watch your back. People get jealous when they think someone's getting special treatment, especially when that someone is you. He walked away, leaving Marcus alone with the implication hanging in the air like smoke. Special treatment. As if Diana Hartwell would ever show favoritism to anyone, let alone him. The idea was absurd. But absurd or not, it was spreading. By the end of the day, Marcus had overheard at least 3 separate conversations speculating about his relationship with the CEO. Each one painted him as either lucky or manipulative, depending on who was talking. That evening, Jack was quieter than usual. He sat at the kitchen table, poking at his dinner with a fork, his eyes distant. Marcus watched him for a moment, then set down his own fork and leaned forward. What's wrong, bud? Jack shrugged, still staring at his plate. Mrs. Pat asked if you were okay. Marcus frowned. Why would she ask that? I don't know. She said you seemed tired. The guilt twisted tighter. Mrs. Sullivan was perceptive, had been ever since her husband died 3 years ago, and she'd started helping Marcus with childcare. She noticed things. The way Marcus's shoulders sagged when he picked Jack up, the dark circles under his eyes, the forced brightness in his voice when he tried to pretend everything was fine. Jack finally looked up, his eyes wide and serious. "Are you okay, Dad?" Marcus forced a smile. "Yeah, I'm okay. Just a lot going on at work right now. But it's nothing you need to worry about." Jack didn't look convinced, but he nodded and went back to his dinner. Marcus watched him, this small person who was so much like Sarah, it hurt sometimes to look at him. The same dark hair, the same thoughtful expression when he was trying to figure something out. Jack picked up on things even when Marcus tried to hide them, the way children always did. Later, after Jack had gone to bed, Marcus sat on the couch with his laptop open, staring at the half-finished report on his screen. He should have been working, should have been pushing through the analysis and getting ahead of the deadline. But his thoughts kept circling back to the conversation with Kyle, the note on his monitor, the way people looked at him now. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. There was an edge to it, something sharper. Suspicion, maybe, or resentment. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Stop making yourself look pathetic. Nobody believes you." Marcus stared at the screen, his pulse quickening. He didn't recognize the number, didn't know who had sent it, but the message was clear enough. Someone was watching him. Someone who wanted him to know that the rumors weren't going to stop, that he'd been marked as something other, something suspect. He deleted the message and set the phone aside. But sleep didn't come easily that night. Marcus lay awake in the dark, listening to the sounds of the city outside his window. Sirens in the distance, voices from the apartment next door, the constant hum of traffic that never quite stopped. He thought about Jack sleeping down the hall, about the job that paid for their small apartment and kept food on the table. He thought about Sarah and the promises he'd made to her in those final weeks, promises about being strong and taking care of their son and not letting the world break him. He was trying. God, he was trying. But some days it felt like he was barely holding on. The next day, the tension escalated. Marcus arrived at work to find his desk slightly rearranged. Nothing major, just small things moved out of place. His stapler on the wrong side, his notepad turned at an odd angle, the framed photo of Jack and Sarah at the beach tilted just enough to be noticeable. It could have been the cleaning crew, but Marcus doubted it. At 10 o'clock, he had a meeting with his team to review the quarterly report. Kyle was there, along with 3 others from the budget division and their department head, Monica Reeves. The meeting should have been routine, a straightforward review of numbers and projections, but Kyle spent most of it subtly undermining Marcus's work, pointing out minor inconsistencies and questioning his methodology. "These figures seem off." Kyle tapped his pen against the printout in front of him. "Did you double-check the depreciation calculations?" Marcus had checked them 3 times. "Yes, the numbers are accurate. It's just, there's this formatting error here." Kyle pointed to a cell in the spreadsheet where the alignment was slightly off. "Formatting errors suggest a lack of attention to detail. Makes me wonder if other things might have been overlooked." Monica Reeves cut in. "Kyle, that's enough." But the damage was done. Everyone in the room had seen it, heard it. The implication was clear. Marcus was distracted, careless, not to be trusted with important work. And the reason for that distraction hung unspoken in the air between them. Marcus returned to his desk after the meeting, jaw clenched and hands shaking with suppressed frustration. He wanted to confront Kyle, to call him out in front of everyone for what he was doing, but that would only make things worse, would only confirm what people were already thinking, that Marcus was losing control, that he couldn't handle the pressure. So he sat down, opened his email, and tried to focus. An hour later, Diana Hartwell walked past his desk. She didn't stop, didn't look at him, just kept moving toward the conference room at the far end of the floor. But as she passed, She slowed for just a fraction of a second, and Marcus caught the faintest shift in her expression. It was gone before he could identify it, but it left him unsettled. That afternoon, Kyle's campaign grew bolder. He started a group chat with several colleagues, ostensibly to discuss an upcoming project, but the conversation quickly veered into gossip. Marcus wasn't included in the chat, but someone, Jamie Foster, one of the few people who'd been friendly to him lately, forwarded him a screenshot. The messages were blunt. Speculation about his relationship with Diana, jokes about how he must have impressed her, suggestions that he was sleeping his way to the top. Each message more crude than the last, each one treating his life as entertainment. Marcus deleted the screenshot and closed his laptop. He couldn't do this anymore. Not today. He grabbed his jacket and left early, ignoring the curious stares as he walked out. He picked up Jack from Mrs. Sullivan's house and took him to the park. They sat on a bench near the playground, watching other kids run and shout. Jack leaned against him, quiet and warm, and for a few minutes, the world felt manageable again. "Dad?" Jack's voice was soft. "Do you like your job?" Marcus looked down at him, surprised by the question. "Sometimes. Why?" Jack shrugged. "You just seem sad when you come home." The words hit harder than they should have. Marcus pulled him closer, resting his chin on top of Jack's head. "I'm not sad, buddy. Just tired. But I'm okay. I promise." Jack didn't say anything, but he didn't pull away either. They sat like that until the sun started to set, casting long shadows across the grass. Marcus wished they could stay there forever, away from the office and the rumors and the relentless pressure. But eventually they had to go home, had to return to the apartment where dinner needed to be made and homework needed to be done, and tomorrow would come whether he was ready for it or not. That night, Marcus received an email. It was from Diana Hartwell, sent at 9:47. The subject line was blank. He opened it, his heart pounding. "Mr. Webb, I am aware of the rumors circulating within the office. I will address this matter directly. Do not respond to this email." Marcus read it 3 times, trying to parse her meaning. Was she going to shut down the gossip? Fire him to make it stop? Acknowledge the situation publicly or bury it deeper? He had no idea. But the fact that she had acknowledged it at all meant something. He just didn't know what. The next morning, there was a notice posted on the company intranet. Mandatory all-staff meeting at 2:00 in the afternoon. No agenda listed, no explanation given. Marcus's stomach dropped. This was it. Whatever Diana planned to do, she was going to do it in front of everyone. He spent the morning in a fog, barely able to concentrate. Around him, the office buzzed with speculation. Some people thought layoffs were coming. Others guessed a major policy change. A few whispered that it had something to do with him, though they didn't say it loud enough for him to hear directly. At 1:55, the entire staff began filing into the main conference room. It was the largest space in the building, usually reserved for client presentations and board meetings. Marcus found a seat near the back, trying to make himself invisible. Kyle sat 3 rows ahead, flanked by colleagues who kept glancing back at Marcus and whispering. At exactly 2:00, Diana Hartwell entered the room. She wore a navy suit, her expression unreadable as always. She walked to the front, stood behind the podium, and surveyed the crowd. The room fell silent, 200 people holding their collective breath. "Thank you all for being here." Her voice was calm and clear, carrying effortlessly to the back of the room. "I've called this meeting to address a matter that has come to my attention over the past few days. It concerns workplace culture, professionalism, and the consequences of failing to uphold both. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. He kept his eyes on her, trying to read her face, but she gave nothing away. There have been rumors regarding my relationship with one of our employees. These rumors are false. Diana let the words hang in the air for a moment. No one moved. No one spoke. They are also damaging, not just to the individual involved, but to the integrity of this company. She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. I want to be clear. Gossip, slander, and baseless speculation have no place here. If I discover that anyone has been deliberately spreading false information about a colleague, that person will be terminated immediately. No warnings. No second chances. Kyle shifted in his seat. His smirk finally disappeared, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. Professionalism is not optional. Respect is not negotiable. If you cannot adhere to these standards, you do not belong here. Diana stepped back from the podium, signaling the end of the meeting. For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, people began to stand and file out, the silence gradually giving way to hushed conversations. Marcus stayed in his seat, waiting for the crowd to thin. When he finally stood, he saw Diana watching him from the front of the room. Their eyes met across the distance, and she gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. Then she turned and left. Marcus walked back to his desk in silence. The whispers hadn't stopped entirely, but they'd retreated, gone underground. The office felt different, not lighter, but quieter, more cautious. No one touched his things. No one left another anonymous note. Kyle didn't speak to him for the rest of the week. In fact, Kyle seemed to go out of his way to avoid him entirely, taking different routes through the office and eating lunch at different times. But Marcus knew better than to believe it was over. People didn't forget this quickly. The rumors might have gone underground, but they were still there, simmering just beneath the surface. He'd seen it before in other workplaces, other situations. Gossip had a long memory. On Friday afternoon, Diana sent another email. This one had a subject line, Performance Review Schedule. Marcus's chest tightened as he opened it. The message was brief and professional, informing him that his annual review had been moved up by 2 weeks and would take place the following Monday at 9 in the morning. No explanation, no additional context. He read it twice, trying to determine if this was routine or something else. Performance reviews were standard, but moving one up without warning was unusual. He couldn't tell if this was a consequence of the rumors or simply bad timing. Either way, he had no choice but to prepare. That weekend, Marcus spent hours reviewing his work from the past year. He compiled reports, tracked his contributions to major projects, documented the times he'd gone above and beyond. It was tedious and exhausting, but necessary. If Diana was looking for a reason to let him go, he wasn't going to make it easy for her. Jack noticed. On Saturday evening, as Marcus sat at the kitchen table surrounded by papers and spreadsheets, Jack climbed into the chair beside him and rested his chin on his hands. Are you in trouble at work? Marcus looked up, startled. No, buddy. Why would you think that? Jack shrugged. You've been working a lot, and you look worried. Marcus set down his pen and pulled Jack closer. I'm not in trouble. I just have a big meeting on Monday, and I want to make sure I'm ready. Jack studied him for a moment, his young face serious. Is it with the lady you texted? Marcus blinked. He'd never told Jack about the text, about Diana, about any of it. But kids were sharper than people gave them credit for. They picked up on things, pieced together fragments of overheard conversations and worried silences. Yeah, it's with her. Jack nodded, as if that explained everything. She sounds scary. Marcus couldn't help but smile. She is, a little. But you're not scared of her, right? Marcus hesitated, then shook his head. No, I'm not scared. It was only half true, but Jack didn't need to know that. Jack hugged him, small arms wrapped tight around his middle. In a man's world, strength wasn't the absence of fear. It was doing what was right, even when your hands shook. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Marcus dressed carefully, choosing his best suit, charcoal gray, the one Sarah had helped him pick out 3 years ago for a presentation that had gone well. White shirt, navy tie. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw a man trying to hold himself together with nothing but sheer will. He dropped Jack off at Mrs. Sullivan's house early. Jack gave him a hug at the door. Good luck, Dad. You've got this. Marcus drove to the office in silence, his mind running through every possible scenario. By the time he reached the building, his hands were clammy and his heart was racing. He arrived at Diana's office at 8:55. Her assistant, Margaret, a woman in her 40s with sharp features and an efficient demeanor, gestured for him to sit. Marcus waited, staring at the closed door, watching the minutes tick by on the wall clock. At exactly 9 o'clock, the door opened and Diana stepped out. Mr. Webb, come in. Marcus stood and followed her inside. The office was larger than he'd expected, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Her desk was immaculate, not a single paper out of place. She gestured to a chair across from her, and he sat, trying to keep his posture straight and his expression calm. Diana settled into her own chair and opened a folder on her desk. She scanned the contents briefly, then looked up at him. Her eyes were as cold and unreadable as ever. Your performance over the past year has been consistently strong. Your work is thorough, your deadlines are met, and your contributions to team projects have been noted by your supervisors. Marcus exhaled slightly, though he didn't let himself relax. Compliments from Diana Hartwell were rare, but they didn't necessarily mean safety. However, and there it was, the word he'd been dreading. There have been concerns raised about your conduct in recent weeks. He opened his mouth to respond, but she held up a hand, stopping him. I am not referring to the rumors. I am referring to the way you have handled them. Several colleagues have reported that you have been withdrawn, uncommunicative, and visibly distressed during work hours. Marcus's jaw tightened. Of course people had reported him. They always did. With all due respect, Miss Hartwell, I think anyone would be distressed if they were being accused of something they didn't do. She regarded him for a long moment, her expression giving nothing away. Then she closed the folder and leaned back in her chair. I agree. The words caught him off guard. He stared at her, unsure how to respond. The situation you were placed in was untenable, and while I addressed the broader issue publicly, I wanted to speak with you directly to ensure you understand that your position here is secure. Marcus blinked. It is? Yes. Diana folded her hands on the desk. The rumors were baseless and damaging. I made it clear that such behavior will not be tolerated. You are not under investigation. You are not being reprimanded. This review is simply to confirm what I already know, that you are a valuable member of this company. Relief washed over him, so strong it was almost disorienting. Marcus had spent days convinced he was about to lose everything, and now she was telling him the opposite. Thank you. I appreciate that. Diana nodded. However, I do have one question. Marcus tensed again. Yes? The text message. You said it was meant for your son. Marcus nodded. Yes, Jack. He's 7. And you sent it during work hours because I miss him. The words came out before Marcus could stop them, raw and honest. I drop him off at 6:30 in the morning and pick him up at 6:30 at night. 12 hours apart. Sometimes I just need to remind him that I'm thinking about him. For the first time since he'd met her, something shifted in Diana's expression. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but it was there. A softening around the eyes, a faint easing of the line between her brows. That's admirable. Being a parent while maintaining a career is not easy, especially alone. Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Diana stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Marcus rose as well, and she extended her hand. He shook it, her grip firm and professional. Keep doing what you're doing, Mr. Webb. And if anyone gives you trouble, report it to HR immediately. I will. Thank you. He left her office feeling lighter than he had in weeks. The weight that had been pressing down on him since that first misplaced text had finally lifted, replaced by something that felt almost like hope. Marcus returned to his desk with something he hadn't felt in days: the absence of dread. The knot in his shoulders had loosened, the constant flutter of anxiety in his chest had quieted. He logged into his computer and pulled up the quarterly report he'd been struggling to finish. The numbers made sense now. His mind was clearer. The fog of worry lifted just enough for him to focus. Around him, the office resumed its normal rhythms. People typed, made phone calls, discussed project timelines. No one was staring at him anymore. No one whispered as he walked past. The meeting with Diana had done more than secure his job. It had reset something fundamental in the dynamics of the floor. Kyle Brennan didn't speak to Marcus for the rest of that week. In fact, Kyle seemed to have developed an acute awareness of Marcus's location at all times, always choosing routes through the office that avoided any potential intersection. When they did pass each other in the hallway, Kyle kept his eyes forward, his expression carefully blank. The group chat that had mocked Marcus fell silent. No one forwarded him screenshots anymore. No one asked invasive questions or made suggestive comments. Diana's threat of immediate termination had accomplished what reason and decency couldn't, but Marcus knew better than to believe the threat was gone entirely. He'd watched enough office politics to understand that resentment didn't evaporate. It just found new channels, new ways to express itself. The silence felt less like peace and more like a held breath. By Friday afternoon, Marcus had completed 2 full sections of the quarterly report. It wasn't much compared to what he'd lost during the chaos of the past 2 weeks, but it was progress. Tangible, measurable progress. He allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as he saved the file and leaned back in his chair. His phone buzzed. A text from Jack, sent from Mrs. Sullivan's phone. "Can we get pizza tonight? Please, please, please?" Marcus smiled and typed back, "Sure, buddy. Your choice of toppings." The response came immediately. "Pepperoni and extra cheese." For the first time in weeks, the thought of going home didn't fill Marcus with exhaustion. He actually looked forward to it. To pizza with Jack, to hearing about his day at school, to the simple routines that had felt so heavy lately. He was packing up his things when Jamie Foster stopped by his desk. Jamie was one of the few people who'd been genuinely kind during the worst of it, who hadn't participated in the gossip or treated Marcus like a curiosity. She held 2 cups of coffee and extended one toward him. "Thought you could use this. You look like you've been running on fumes." Marcus accepted the coffee gratefully. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to people who've been there." Jamie pulled up a chair and sat down. "Single mom, 2 kids. I know what it's like when work stress bleeds into everything else." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both sipping their coffee. Then Jamie spoke again, her voice lower. For what it's worth, I never believed any of it. The rumors, I mean. You're not that guy. Marcus felt a wave of gratitude that surprised him with its intensity. Thanks. That means a lot. Kyle's an ass, always has been. He's been gunning for a promotion since he got here, and when it didn't happen, he decided someone else must be getting unfair advantages. Jamie shook her head. Textbook insecurity. Marcus hadn't known about Kyle's promotion ambitions, but it made sense. 6 months ago, the company had been looking for a senior analyst to lead the budget restructuring project. Marcus had been considered but ultimately passed over due to lack of management experience. He'd assumed the position had gone to someone from another department, but now he wondered if Kyle had been in the running too. Did he apply for the senior analyst role last year? Jamie nodded. Yeah, got pretty far in the process from what I heard. Then they brought in someone external. Kyle took it personally. That explained a lot. The hostility, the sabotage, the eagerness to paint Marcus as someone getting special treatment. Kyle saw Marcus as competition, even though they weren't competing for the same things. In Kyle's mind, any attention Marcus received was attention stolen from him. Well, hopefully he backs off now. Marcus finished his coffee and tossed the cup in the recycling bin. Jamie's expression suggested she wasn't so sure, but she didn't say anything. She just stood, squeezed his shoulder briefly, and headed back to her own desk. Marcus gathered his things and left, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. The physical activity felt good, his muscles finally getting some release after days of tension. By the time he reached the ground floor, his legs burned pleasantly, and his head felt clearer than it had in weeks. The weekend passed in a blur of normalcy that felt almost luxurious. Saturday morning, Marcus took Jack to the park, where they threw a football until Jack's arm got tired. In the afternoon, they went grocery shopping together, Jack pushing the cart and narrating his opinions on every product they passed. Sunday was quieter. Laundry, meal prep for the week, a movie they'd both seen 3 times before but still enjoyed. Mrs. Sullivan stopped by Sunday afternoon to drop off a casserole she'd made. She lingered in the doorway, studying Marcus with the kind of perceptiveness that came from decades of reading people. You look better. Less like you're carrying the world. Marcus smiled. Things settled down at work. Crisis averted. Good. Jack was worried about you, you know. Kept asking me if dads could get fired for being sad. The words hit Marcus harder than they should have. He tried so hard to shield Jack from his stress, but children saw everything. They absorbed the emotional weather of their homes even when adults tried to hide it. I'll talk to him. Make sure he knows everything's okay. Mrs. Sullivan nodded, satisfied. He's a good boy, Marcus. Sarah would be proud of how you're raising him. After she left, Marcus found Jack in his room, building an elaborate structure out of Legos. He sat down on the floor beside him. Mrs. Pat said you were worried about me. Jack didn't look up from his construction. A little bit. I'm okay, buddy. Work was hard for a while, but it's better now. Promise? Promise. Jack finally met his eyes, searching for reassurance. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because he nodded and went back to his Legos. Marcus stayed on the floor with him for another hour, handing him pieces when asked, and listening to Jack's elaborate backstory for the spaceship castle submarine hybrid he was creating. Later that night, after Jack had gone to bed, Marcus sat on the couch with his laptop. He pulled up the quarterly report and worked through another section, his mind finally cooperative instead of fighting him at every turn. The analysis came easier now, the patterns in the data revealing themselves without the static of anxiety clouding his perception. He was halfway through a particularly complex revenue projection when his phone buzzed. An email from Diana Hartwell, sent at 10:32 on a Sunday night. The subject line read, Monday meeting. Marcus opened it with a flutter of renewed anxiety. Mr. Webb, please come to my office Monday at 10 a.m. This is not performance related. There is another matter I need to discuss with you. D.H. Not performance related. The phrase should have been reassuring, but instead it opened up a dozen new questions. What other matter? Why couldn't it wait? Why send the email on a Sunday night? Marcus read it 3 more times, trying to extract meaning from the spare language, but there was nothing more to find. He set the phone down and tried to return to his work, but concentration was impossible now. His mind spun through possibilities, each one less probable than the last. He gave up on the report and went to bed, but sleep came in fragments. He kept waking up to check the time, each hour dragging by with excruciating slowness. By the time his alarm went off Monday morning, he felt more tired than when he'd gone to bed. Jack noticed at breakfast. You look sleepy, Dad. Didn't sleep great, but I'm okay. Jack studied him with those 2 perceptive eyes. Is it the meeting with the scary lady? Marcus couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, a little bit. You'll be fine. You're always fine. The faith in Jack's voice was absolute, unshakable. Marcus wished he could borrow some of it for the next few hours. He dropped Jack off at Mrs. Sullivan's, then drove to the office in rush-hour traffic that seemed worse than usual. Every red light felt like a personal affront, every slow driver an obstacle designed specifically to make him late. He arrived at the building with 15 minutes to spare and spent 10 of them sitting in his car, trying to calm his racing thoughts. At 9:55, he took the elevator to the 47th floor. Margaret, Diana's assistant, looked up as he approached. Mr. Webb, she's expecting you. Go right in. Marcus knocked once and entered. Diana stood by the window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. She wore a charcoal suit today, her hair pulled back in the same severe style she always favored. When she turned to face him, her expression was different from their last meeting. Not softer exactly, but less armored. Close the door, please. Marcus did as instructed and took the seat she indicated. His heart hammered against his ribs, each beat loud in his ears. Diana didn't return to her desk. Instead, she remained standing by the window, her hands clasped in front of her. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter than he'd ever heard it. 3 weeks ago, when you sent that text, it triggered something I'd been suppressing for years. Marcus waited, not sure if he should respond or let her continue. My son, Nathan, died 5 years ago. Car accident. He was 8 years old. Diana's voice remained steady, but Marcus could hear the effort it took to keep it that way. The last text I sent him was, I miss you, sweetheart. I was working late. Again. He was home with the nanny. She paused, looking out the window at the city below. He responded with a heart emoji. 3 hours later, the nanny called. There'd been an accident. A drunk driver ran a red light. Nathan was in the back seat. The nanny had minor injuries. Nathan died before the ambulance arrived. Marcus felt the words like physical blows. He wanted to say something, to offer comfort or condolence, but everything that came to mind felt inadequate. When I saw those words on my screen from you, Diana's voice caught, the first break in her composure. It was like Nathan reaching out, like some part of him was trying to tell me something. I know that's not rational, but grief isn't rational. She finally turned to face him. That's why I walked over to your desk. Why I asked you to say it again. I wasn't thinking clearly, I was just reacting to something I thought I'd buried. Marcus found his voice. I'm so sorry, Miss Hartwell. I can't imagine. After Nathan died, I threw myself into work, became the person you know, cold, efficient, unforgiving. It was easier than feeling everything I'd lost. Easier than admitting that I'd chosen work over my son so many times that when it mattered most, I wasn't there. The raw honesty in her words was almost painful to witness. This was a side of Diana Hartwell that no one saw, a vulnerability she'd hidden beneath layers of professional distance and ruthless competence. You didn't choose work over him. You were providing for him, taking care of his future. I was avoiding him. Diana cut him off, her voice sharp with self-recrimination. I was avoiding the messiness of being a parent, the constant demands and interruptions. I told myself I was building something for him, securing his future. But really, I was just more comfortable in boardrooms than at soccer practice. She moved to her desk and sat down, some of the CEO's composure returning. I put you in an impossible position. My reactions sparked those rumors. I should have handled it privately. Instead, I made it a public spectacle. You didn't know. It was an accident. Accidents have consequences. You suffered them. For that, I apologize. Marcus had never heard Diana Hartwell apologize to anyone for anything. The words carried weight beyond their simple meaning. You ended it. You protected me. That took courage. Diana's expression shifted, something almost like surprise crossing her features. Your dedication to your son reminded me what I'd lost, but also what matters. You leave at 5:30 every day to pick up Jack. You don't apologize for it, don't make excuses. You just do it because he needs you. He's my priority, as he should be, as Nathan should have been mine. Diana opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. I'm implementing new company policies, family flexibility for working parents, remote work options 2 days per week, flexible hours for childcare needs, emergency child sick leave without penalty. Marcus stared at her, trying to process what he was hearing. These changes are overdue, and I want you to help pilot the program. Not because of what happened. She held up a hand before he could speak. But because you understand the challenges working parents face. You've been managing them successfully for years, even when company policy made it harder than it needed to be. I don't know what to say. Say you'll consider it. This isn't favoritism, Mr. Webb. This is professional recognition of expertise that happens to come from lived experience. Marcus nodded slowly. I'd be honored to help. Diana stood, extending her hand across the desk. He shook it, and this time her grip felt different, less formal, more genuine. One more thing. Her voice took on that careful quality again. The text you sent. It was meant for Jack because you miss him during work hours. That tells me everything I need to know about what kind of father you are, what kind of man you are. She released his hand and stepped back. Don't lose that, Mr. Webb. Don't let this job, or any job, take that from you. I did, and I can never get it back. Marcus left her office 20 minutes later, his head spinning with everything that had been said. The revelation about Nathan, the apology, the new policies. It was too much to process all at once. But underneath the confusion was a sense of understanding that hadn't been there before. Diana Hartwell wasn't just the ice queen of Hartwell Global Investments. She was a mother who'd lost her child and built walls so high that nothing could hurt her again. The recognition felt important, though Marcus couldn't articulate exactly why. He returned to his desk and tried to work, but concentration was impossible. Jamie noticed and came by around lunch. You okay? You look like someone hit you with a truck. Just a lot to think about. Diana's implementing new family leave policies. Wants my input on the pilot program. Jamie's eyebrows shot up. Seriously? That's huge. We've been needing better family support forever. Yeah, it's good. So, why do you look like you just came from a funeral? Marcus shook his head. Just processing. It's been a weird few weeks. Jamie seemed to sense there was more to it, but didn't push. Well, congratulations. Maybe some good came out of all the bullshit after all. Over the next few days, Marcus noticed subtle shifts in the office dynamics. Diana had apparently sent a company-wide memo about the new family flexibility policies, outlining the eligibility criteria and implementation timeline. The response was overwhelmingly positive. 23 employees applied for the pilot program within the first 48 hours, including Jamie. But not everyone was pleased. Kyle Brennan's resentment, which had gone underground after Diana's all-staff warning, began to surface again in small, calculated ways. He questioned Marcus's analysis during team meetings, always framed as constructive criticism, but delivered with an edge that made the intent clear. He volunteered for high-visibility projects and made sure everyone knew he was going above and beyond while others were working from home. The tension built gradually over the course of the week, small provocations that Marcus tried to ignore. But on Friday afternoon, Kyle made a mistake. He sent an email to the entire budget division with an updated project timeline for the Atlas initiative, a major cost reduction effort the department had been working on for months. The email took credit for analysis and recommendations that Marcus had developed and submitted weeks earlier. Marcus stared at the email, reading it twice to make sure he wasn't misinterpreting. But there was no ambiguity. Kyle had attached a spreadsheet that was identical to Marcus's work, except for the name in the author field and the timestamp showing Kyle had saved it 2 hours after Marcus had originally sent it to the team. Jamie saw it too. She appeared at Marcus's desk 5 minutes later, her laptop open to the offending email. Please tell me you see this too. Please tell me I'm not crazy. I see it. What are you going to do? Marcus pulled up his original files, verified the timestamps, and took screenshots of everything. Then he stood up. I'm going to HR. The meeting with Linda Morrison, the head of HR, took 40 minutes. Marcus presented his evidence methodically, the original files with their creation dates and timestamps, the email thread showing when he'd submitted the work to the team, the comparison of his version to Kyle's showing they were identical. Linda took notes, her expression growing more serious as the presentation continued. This is credit theft. That's a serious violation of our professional conduct policy. I'm not trying to get anyone fired. I just want it on record that this is my work. Linda nodded. I understand. But given the context, the harassment you experienced earlier this month, Diana's explicit warning about professional standards, this can't be ignored. I'll need to investigate. Kyle will say I'm making it up, that it's revenge for the rumors. Let me worry about that. You've documented everything properly. The evidence speaks for itself. Linda closed her notebook. In the meantime, try to minimize direct interaction with Kyle. If he approaches you about this, tell him you've reported it to HR and the matter is under investigation. Marcus left HR feeling both vindicated and uneasy. He'd done the right thing, protected his work and his reputation, but he'd also escalated a conflict that might have burned itself out otherwise. Kyle wouldn't take this quietly. The retaliation came faster than Marcus expected. By Monday morning, Kyle had filed a counter-complaint with HR, claiming that Marcus had been hostile and unprofessional, that the accusations of credit theft were retaliation for Kyle's legitimate questions about work quality. He'd found 2 colleagues willing to submit statements saying they'd witnessed Marcus being dismissive and territorial about his projects. Linda called Marcus back to her office Monday afternoon,
to inform him of the counter-complaint.
She assured him that the investigation would be thorough and impartial, that both sides would be heard. But Marcus could see the complication in her eyes. What had been a straightforward case of documentation and timestamps was now a he said mess. The investigation stretched across the entire week. Linda interviewed everyone who'd been copied on the project emails, reviewed all the file metadata, checked server logs to verify when documents had been created and modified. Kyle was placed on administrative review and told to work from home while the investigation proceeded. The office filled with speculation again, though this time it was different. People weren't gossiping about Marcus and Diana anymore. They were taking sides in the Marcus-Kyle dispute. Some saw Marcus as finally standing up for himself after weeks of harassment. Others thought he was being vindictive, using his perceived connection to Diana to settle scores. Marcus tried to ignore it all and focus on his work, but the distraction was unavoidable. Every conversation that stopped when he walked by, every exchange of glances across the office, it all reminded him that he was still the subject of scrutiny, still different from everyone else. Diana sent an email Wednesday morning. The subject line was simply status, and the body contained one sentence. I'm aware of the HR investigation. Let the process work. Marcus wasn't sure if that was reassurance or a warning to stay out of it. Either way, he had no intention of interfering. He'd presented his evidence and now had to trust that the truth would be sufficient. Thursday afternoon, Linda called both Marcus and Kyle in for separate meetings to review the investigation findings. Marcus went first, sitting across from Linda as she laid out her conclusions. The evidence is clear that you created the original analysis. The file metadata, email timestamps, and witness statements all support your version of events. Mr. Brennan's claim that he made substantial revisions is contradicted by the fact that the documents are identical except for author attribution. Relief washed through Marcus, followed immediately by apprehension. So what happens now? Mr. Brennan will receive a formal written warning that will go in his permanent file. He's also required to complete ethics training before he can return to team projects. And he'll need to send a correction email to the distribution list acknowledging that you were the primary author of the Atlas analysis. He's not being fired? Linda shook her head. The violation is serious, but it doesn't meet the threshold for termination on first offense. However, the written warning means that any future infractions will result in immediate dismissal. Marcus nodded, accepting the decision, even though part of him wished for a cleaner resolution. Kyle would still be here, still resentful, still looking for ways to undermine him. The correction email went out Friday morning. It was terse, clearly written under duress. I need to clarify that the Atlas Initiative analysis was primarily authored by Marcus Webb. I apologize for the attribution error. Marcus read it twice, noting the passive construction, attribution error, as if the name had been changed by accident rather than deliberate plagiarism. But the record was corrected. That would have to be enough. Kyle returned to the office the following Monday. He didn't speak to Marcus, didn't even look in his direction. He arrived early, left late, and spent his days working with aggressive focus on tasks that had nothing to do with Marcus's projects. The hostility was palpable but contained, channeled into pointed silence rather than active sabotage. Jamie stopped by Marcus's desk Tuesday afternoon with coffee again. So, that was intense. Yeah, think it's over? Marcus considered the question. Kyle's resentment hadn't disappeared. It had just been driven deeper, compressed into something denser and more volatile. The HR investigation had humiliated him, cost him credibility, marked his file with a permanent stain. Men like Kyle didn't forget those kinds of wounds. No. But maybe it'll stay quiet for a while. Fair enough. Jamie sipped her coffee. Hey, I wanted to thank you. The family flexibility stuff, it's going to be huge for me. Being able to work from home twice a week means I can actually see my kids before bedtime. Don't thank me. Thank Diana. She's the one making it happen. She's making it happen because of you. Because your situation made her see what's been broken for years. Jamie squeezed his shoulder. So yeah, thank you. After she left, Marcus sat at his desk thinking about the chain of causation that had led from one misplaced text message to policies that would affect dozens of families. The path was tangled, full of pain and misunderstanding and accidental grace. Diana's grief over Nathan had created the coldness that made the office so unforgiving. Marcus's text had cracked that armor just enough for her to remember what mattered. And now, maybe, something good would come from all of it. That evening, Marcus picked Jack up from school instead of having Mrs. Sullivan do it. He'd started using the flexible hours policy himself, adjusting his schedule so he could be there at 3:30 when Jack came out of the building. Jack's face lit up when he saw his father waiting by the fence. "Dad, you're here!" "New schedule, remember? I'll be picking you up Tuesdays and Thursdays from now on." They walked to the car together, Jack talking non-stop about a science project on weather patterns and a fight that had broken out at lunch between two kids in 5th grade. Marcus listened, half his attention on Jack's animated narration and half on the simple joy of being present for this ordinary moment. At home, they made dinner together, spaghetti with meat sauce, Jack's favorite. While the water boiled, Jack sat at the kitchen counter doing homework, and Marcus prepared the sauce, the rhythm of chopping vegetables and stirring the pot soothing in its familiarity. "Dad?" Jack looked up from his math worksheet. "Are you happy now?" The question surprised Marcus. "What do you mean?" "You were sad for a while, after the thing with the lady at work. But you seem better now." Children saw everything. Marcus had tried so hard to shield Jack from his stress, but 7-year-olds were more perceptive than adults gave them credit for. "Yeah, buddy, I'm better. Work was hard for a bit, but things are good now." "Good." Jack returned to his worksheet, satisfied. "I don't like when you're sad." Marcus set down the wooden spoon and went to hug his son, pulling him close. Sometimes being a hero wasn't about slaying dragons or saving kingdoms. Sometimes it was just about showing up, being present, letting your kid know that even when the world got heavy, their home was still solid ground. Over the weekend, Marcus received a text from an unknown number. "You think you won? You just made everything worse. Watch your back." He stared at the message for a long moment, then took a screenshot and forwarded it to Linda Morrison and the IT security department. He didn't respond to the sender, didn't give whoever it was the satisfaction of knowing they'd gotten to him. But the message stayed with him, a splinter working its way deeper. The threat wasn't specific enough to be actionable, but it was clear enough to be unsettling. Someone, almost certainly Kyle, though the number was blocked, was still watching, still angry, still looking for an opening. Sunday evening, another email from Diana arrived. The subject line read, "Monday meeting again," and for a moment Marcus felt the same flutter of anxiety from before. But when he opened it, the message was different. "Mr. Webb, please come to my office Monday at 10 a.m. I have a proposal I'd like to discuss with you regarding your career development. This is entirely your choice, no pressure either way. D.H." Career development. The phrase could mean anything, but coming from Diana after everything that had happened, it felt significant. Marcus read the email 3 times, trying to guess what she might propose, but speculation was useless. He'd find out Monday morning. He spent Sunday night working on the quarterly report, finally finishing the last section around 11. The work was solid, the analysis thorough. He saved the file and sent it to Monica Reeves with a note that it was ready for review whenever she had time. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made New York feel alive. Sharp air, brilliant sky, the city dressed in its best colors. Marcus dropped Jack at school, savoring the ritual of walking him to the classroom door and getting a quick hug before Jack ran off to join his friends. At 9:55, Marcus took the elevator to the 47th floor for the third time in as many weeks. Margaret smiled when she saw him, a genuine expression that hadn't been there before. "Go ahead in. She's ready for you." Diana stood by her desk this time, a folder in her hands. She gestured for Marcus to sit, and this time she sat too, creating a sense of conversation rather than interrogation. "Thank you for coming. I know these frequent meetings must be unsettling." "It's fine. What's the proposal?" Diana opened the folder, revealing what looked like a position description. "I'm creating a new role. Director of Budget Operations." It's a leadership position that would oversee the entire budget division, manage the team, and report directly to the CFO. The salary is 40% higher than your current position, with better benefits and the flexibility you're already using. Marcus's mind went blank for a moment, unable to process what he was hearing. "I'd like to offer you the position." Marcus started, then stopped. "Why?" "Because you've earned it. Your work over the past year has been consistently excellent. You identified cost savings that no one else saw. You mentored junior analysts who are now outperforming their peers. And you've been managing the demands of single parenthood while maintaining professional standards that most people with far fewer responsibilities can't match. Kyle will say this is favoritism, that I'm getting promoted because of everything that happened." Diana's expression hardened. Kyle's opinion is irrelevant. This decision is based on merit, documented performance, and the needs of the organization. If anyone questions it, they can review your personnel file and compare it to any other candidates. The evidence speaks for itself. Marcus leaned back in his chair, trying to wrap his mind around the offer. Director. Leadership. 40% salary increase. It would change everything. More stability for Jack, less constant worry about money, the ability to build some savings for emergencies. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. Take the time you need. But Marcus," Diana's voice softened slightly, "this isn't charity. This isn't me trying to make amends for what happened with the text or the rumors. This is professional recognition of your value to this company. Don't let anyone, including yourself, diminish that." Marcus nodded, taking the folder when she offered it. "Thank you. I'll review it and let you know." He left her office in the daze, the folder clutched in his hand like proof of something he didn't quite believe yet. Back at his desk, he opened it and read through the position description carefully. The responsibilities were substantial, the expectations clear. It would be more work, more pressure, more visibility. But it would also be more control, more authority to shape how the department functioned. Jamie noticed the folder when she came by before lunch. "What's that?" Marcus hesitated, then decided there was no point in hiding it. "Job offer. Director of Budget Operations." Jamie's eyes went wide. "Holy shit. Marcus, that's amazing." "I haven't accepted yet." "Why not?" "Because it's going to look like exactly what Kyle's been saying. That I'm getting special treatment." Jamie's expression turned fierce. "Screw Kyle. You've been carrying this department for 2 years. Everyone knows it except the people who don't want to see it. If Diana's finally recognizing that, you should take it and not look back." Marcus wanted to believe her, wanted to accept the offer and move forward without second-guessing. But the weight of the past weeks still pressed on him, the memory of whispers and accusations and anonymous threats. "I need to think about it," Fair enough, but think fast. Opportunities like this don't come around often. That evening, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with Jack, who was working on a drawing of what appeared to be a robot-dragon hybrid. Marcus had the position description open on his laptop, reading through the details one more time. "Dad?" Jack looked up from his drawing. "Why do you keep reading that same thing?" "It's a job offer. A better job. I'm trying to decide if I should take it." "Would it make you happy?" The question was so simple, so direct, that it cut through all of Marcus's complicated reasoning. Would it make him happy? Not financially secure, not professionally validated, not any of the other metrics he'd been using to evaluate the decision. Just happy. "I think so. It would mean we'd have more money for things we need, and I'd have more control over my schedule, so I could be home more." "Then you should take it." Jack returned to his drawing as if the matter was settled. Marcus smiled. Out of the mouths of children came wisdom that adults spent years trying to rediscover. Sarah used to say that. She believed that kids saw the world more clearly because they hadn't learned to complicate everything yet. "You're right, buddy. I should take it." Jack nodded, adding flames to the robot dragon's mouth. "Mom would want you to." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Not painful, but profound. Sarah would want him to take this opportunity, to provide better for Jack, to stop punishing himself for being ambitious while also being a father. She'd always believed he could do both, had encouraged him to pursue promotions even when it meant longer hours. Yeah, she would. That night, after Jack had gone to bed, Marcus sent an email to Diana. The message was brief. "I accept the position. Thank you for the opportunity. I won't let you down." The response came 15 minutes later. "I know you won't. We'll announce it Friday. Congratulations, Director Webb." Marcus stared at the title, Director Webb, and felt something shift inside him. Not just pride or relief, but a sense of possibility that had been absent for too long. Maybe he could do this. Maybe he could be both the father Jack needed and the professional he wanted to be. Maybe there was room in his life for both. The announcement went out Friday morning via company-wide email. Diana's message was characteristically direct. "I am pleased to announce Marcus Webb's promotion to Director of Budget Operations, effective immediately." Marcus has demonstrated exceptional analytical skills, leadership potential, and commitment to excellence. I'm confident he will continue to drive innovation and efficiency in this new role. The responses came quickly. Jamie sent a congratulations message within minutes. Monica Reeves stopped by his desk to shake his hand and welcome him to the leadership team. Several other colleagues offered genuine good wishes. But there were silences too. Kyle didn't respond at all, didn't even acknowledge the announcement. A few others in the department who'd been friendly with Kyle maintained careful neutrality, neither congratulating nor criticizing. Marcus spent the afternoon in meetings with Diana and the CFO, discussing the transition plan and his initial priorities in the new role. By the time he left the office at 5:30, his head was spinning with new responsibilities and possibilities. He picked Jack up from after-school care, and they went out for dinner to celebrate. Jack chose the diner he loved, the one with red vinyl booths and milkshakes so thick you had to eat them with a spoon. They sat across from each other, Jack with chocolate ice cream coating his upper lip, Marcus with coffee that was actually decent for once. "You're happy." Jack said it as a statement, not a question. "Yeah, I am." "Good. You should be happy more." Out of the mouths of children. Marcus reached across the table and ruffled Jack's hair, earning a protest and a grin. They stayed until Jack had finished his entire sundae and Marcus had drunk 3 cups of coffee, then drove home through the city streets lit up against the autumn darkness. The weekend passed in a haze of preparation for the new role and ordinary domestic tasks that felt less burdensome than usual. Marcus reviewed department files, studied the budget processes he'd be overseeing, made notes on improvements he wanted to implement. Between work sessions, he and Jack raked leaves in the small yard behind their building, watched a football game on TV, and made cookies that came out slightly burnt but tasted fine anyway. Monday morning, Marcus arrived at the office to find his workspace had changed. Not his physical desk, that would come later when they moved him to the management floor, but the intangible space he occupied in the organization's structure. People deferred to him in ways they hadn't before. His opinions in meetings carried new weight. Even his emails got faster responses. The power was subtle but real, and Marcus found himself both energized and slightly unsettled by it. He'd never been particularly ambitious, had always been content to do good work without seeking recognition. But now that recognition had found him anyway, brought about by a chain of events so improbable that it felt like something other than luck. By Wednesday, he'd settled into the new rhythm: morning meetings with department heads, afternoon project reviews, strategic planning sessions with Diana and the CFO about the next fiscal year. The work was challenging but satisfying in ways his previous role hadn't been. He was reviewing a proposal for new budget software when his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Enjoy it while it lasts. Nothing built on lies stays standing. Marcus's jaw clenched. Another message from the same person who'd sent the previous threat, almost certainly Kyle. He took a screenshot and forwarded it to Linda Morrison and IT Security, then blocked the number. But the words lingered, poisonous in their implication. Nothing built on lies. As if his promotion was somehow fraudulent, unearned, the result of manipulation rather than merit. Marcus set the phone aside and forced himself to focus on the proposal. He wouldn't let Kyle's resentment undermine what he'd achieved. The record was clear. His performance over 3 years spoke for itself. Anyone who wanted to question it could review the documentation. But doubt had a way of seeping in through cracks, and Kyle's words found those cracks. Was he really qualified for this role? Had Diana promoted him too quickly, based on personal sympathy rather than professional judgment? Would he be able to lead people who resented his rapid rise? The questions spiraled until Marcus physically shook his head to clear them. No, he'd earned this. The work was documented, the results measurable, the promotion justified. He needed to trust that and move forward. That evening, Diana sent an email asking him to attend the Children's Hospital fundraiser on Saturday. It's a company tradition. Employees are welcome to bring family. Jack might enjoy it. There are activities for kids. Marcus read the email twice, noting the casual tone that was so different from Diana's usual formal communications. This wasn't an order, or even a professional request. It was an invitation, maybe even an olive branch of sorts. He showed the email to Jack, who was immediately excited about the prospect of games and activities. They responded together, Jack dictating what Marcus should write. "We would love to come. Thank you." Saturday arrived with perfect autumn weather, cool but sunny, the kind of day that made people remember why they loved New York, despite everything that made it difficult. The fundraiser was held at the Botanical Gardens in Brooklyn, sprawling grounds filled with families and Hartwell employees and volunteers from the hospital. Marcus and Jack arrived at 2, Jack dressed in his best khaki pants and a button-down shirt that made him look impossibly grown up. They wandered through the activities, face painting, balloon animals, carnival games with prizes that were mostly stuffed animals and plastic toys. Diana arrived 30 minutes later, dressed in black slacks and a cream blouse instead of her usual suit. Marcus saw her before she saw them, watched her scan the crowd with an expression that was almost, but not quite, relaxed. When her eyes found Marcus, she smiled, a real smile,
small but genuine. She made her way over, weaving through the crowd with the same decisive movement that characterized everything she did. "Mr. Webb, Jack." She nodded to each of them in turn. Jack, who'd been warned to be polite, extended his hand.
"Nice to meet you, ma'am."
Diana shook his hand with the same seriousness she'd given adult. "Nice to meet you too, Jack. Your father talks about you often." Jack looked up at Marcus with surprise.
"He does?"
"He does. He's very proud of you." For the next 2 hours, the three of them moved through the fundraiser together. Diana played carnival games with surprising competitiveness, her determination to win at ring toss making Jack laugh until he had to sit down.
Marcus watched them, this unlikely pair, the CEO who'd built walls so high nothing could reach her, and his 7-year-old son, who didn't know enough to be intimidated by titles or power. Jack won a stuffed bear at the duck pond and immediately offered it to Diana. "For you." Diana looked startled, then touched in a way that made Marcus's chest ache. "Thank you, Jack. I'll treasure it." As the afternoon wore on and the crowds began to thin, they found themselves sitting on a bench near the rose garden. Jack had run off to the playground, visible from where they sat, giving Marcus and Diana a moment of quiet. "He's wonderful." Diana's voice was soft, her eyes on Jack as he climbed the jungle gym. "You're doing an incredible job with him." "I'm trying. Some days I'm not sure I'm succeeding." "You are. Trust me on that." Diana was silent for a moment, then added, "Nathan would have been 15 now. I think about that sometimes. Who he would have become, what he'd be interested in, I'll never know." Marcus didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Sometimes silence was the only appropriate response to grief. "Thank you for coming today. It means more than you probably realize." "Thank you for inviting us." They sat in companionable quiet until Jack ran back over, breathless and grass-stained, ready to go home. Marcus and Diana stood, and she shook Jack's hand again with that same grave courtesy. "Take care of your dad, Jack. He's a good man." "I know. He's the best." Diana's smile this time was tinged with something bittersweet. She watched them walk toward the parking lot, the tall father and small son, and Marcus turned once to see her still standing there, the stuffed bear tucked under one arm. The drive home was quiet, Jack dozing in the back seat after all the excitement. Marcus thought about the afternoon, about Diana's carefully constructed walls showing cracks, about the strange friendship that seemed to be forming from the wreckage of that first terrible misunderstanding. When they got home, Jack went straight to bed, exhausted from the day. Marcus sat on the couch with a glass of water and his phone, scrolling through work emails out of habit. There was one from Diana, sent 20 minutes ago. "Thank you again for today. Haven't enjoyed an afternoon like that in years." Marcus typed back, "Thank you for including us. Jack had a great time." The response came quickly. "So did I." The following Monday marked Marcus's first full week as Director of Budget Operations. He arrived early, before most of the staff, and spent the quiet hour reviewing the department's current projects and personnel files. The responsibility felt heavier than he'd anticipated. 14 people now reported to him, their careers and livelihoods partially dependent on his decisions. By 9, the office had filled with the usual morning chaos. Marcus called his first department meeting for 10 o'clock, giving everyone time to settle in before gathering in the main conference room. 13 faces looked back at him. Kyle was notably absent, having called in sick that morning. Marcus kept the meeting brief, outlining his initial priorities and inviting input on process improvements. Jamie spoke up about bottlenecks in the approval workflow. Two junior analysts mentioned confusion about project handoffs. Marcus took notes, asked clarifying questions, and promised to address each issue systematically. The meeting ended at 10:45. As people filed out, several stopped to congratulate him again or offer their support. But Marcus noticed the silences too. Certain people who left without making eye contact, who hadn't contributed to the discussion, who were clearly withholding judgment. He couldn't blame them. Trust had to be earned, especially when someone moved up quickly through ranks that others had been trying to climb for years. Tuesday brought the first real test. The CFO requested an urgent analysis of potential cost reductions across 3 divisions, needed by Friday for a board presentation. It was exactly the kind of high-pressure, high-visibility project that could establish Marcus's credibility or expose any weaknesses in his leadership. Marcus divided the work among his team based on their strengths, set clear deliverables and deadlines, and scheduled daily check-ins to monitor progress. By Wednesday afternoon, they were ahead of schedule. By Thursday evening, the analysis was complete and polished. Marcus presented the findings to the CFO and Diana Friday morning. The recommendations were bold: consolidating redundant software systems, renegotiating vendor contracts, restructuring the procurement process. Together, they represented potential savings of over $400,000 annually. The CFO studied the spreadsheets carefully, asking pointed questions that Marcus answered without hesitation. After 30 minutes of scrutiny, the CFO leaned back and nodded. "This is solid work, Marcus. Really solid. I'll present it to the board Monday with full confidence." Diana's expression remained neutral, but Marcus caught the slight upturn at the corner of her mouth. Approval, restrained but real. After the meeting, Diana asked him to stay behind. "Well done. The analysis was thorough and the recommendations actionable. Exactly what the board needs." "Thank you. The team did excellent work." "The team did what you directed them to do. Don't diminish your contribution." Diana walked to the window, her usual position when she had something complicated to say. "I wanted to tell you something about the fundraiser last weekend." Marcus waited, giving her space to find the words. "That was the first time in 5 years I've attended a public event without feeling like I was performing. Without the armor." She turned to face him. "Jack reminded me what I lost, but also what I still could have if I let myself." "I'm glad it helped." "More than helped. It shifted something." Diana's voice took on that careful quality it got when she was pushing against her own boundaries. "There's another fundraiser next month. Larger event, black tie. The company takes a table. Would you and Jack like to come?" Marcus hesitated, thinking about Jack in a tuxedo at a formal gala, probably bored within 20 minutes. But he also thought about Diana extending herself, offering connection despite years of practiced isolation. Jack might not last long at a black tie event. He's 7. There's a children's area with activities. Other employees bring their kids. He'd be fine. Diana paused. "But if you'd rather not, we'd like to come, thank you." Relief flickered across her features, there and gone so quickly Marcus almost missed it. "Good. I'll have Margaret send you the details." Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus settled into the rhythm of leadership. The work was demanding but satisfying in ways his previous role hadn't been. He had autonomy to make decisions, authority to implement changes, and resources to support his team properly. He instituted new processes, weekly one-on-ones with each direct report, transparent project assignments based on skills rather than seniority, regular team meetings where everyone could voice concerns. The changes were small individually, but added up to a shift in department culture. Most people responded positively. Productivity increased, morale improved. The junior analysts in particular seemed energized by having clearer expectations, and more direct feedback. But Kyle remained a problem. He'd returned from his sick day with a doctor's note and immediately requested a meeting with Marcus. The conversation was tense, both men maintaining rigid professionalism while the real conflict simmered underneath. "I wanted to discuss my career development." Kyle's tone was flat, carefully neutral. "I've been with the company 8 months now, and I think I'm ready for more responsibility." Marcus had anticipated this. "What specifically are you interested in?" "Lead analyst role, managing some of the junior staff, taking ownership of major projects." "That's a reasonable goal. Let's talk about what you'd need to demonstrate to get there." Marcus pulled up Kyle's performance file. "Your technical work is strong. The Atlas analysis you submitted," he let the pause hang for just a moment, "showed solid methodology, but there are concerns about collaboration and professional conduct." Kyle's jaw tightened. "The HR investigation was resolved. I completed the required training. The investigation documented patterns we need to address before considering promotion. Taking credit for others' work, hostile communication, resistance to feedback. These aren't technical deficiencies, they're leadership disqualifiers." "So you're saying I can't advance?" "I'm saying advancement requires demonstrating the behaviors we want in leaders. That includes supporting colleagues, sharing credit, and accepting accountability." Marcus kept his voice level, factual. "If you're committed to changing those patterns, we can create a development plan. If not, you'll remain in your current role." Kyle stood abruptly. "This is retaliation. You're punishing me for questioning your relationship with Hartwell." "This conversation is about documented performance issues that existed before you and I had any conflict. If you want to file another HR complaint, that's your right. But the facts won't change." Kyle left without another word, his anger barely contained beneath the surface civility. Marcus sat alone in the conference room afterward, feeling the weight of the confrontation. He'd handled it correctly, stayed professional, focused on documented behavior, offered a path forward, but he knew it wouldn't end here. Kyle's resentment had crystallized into something harder, more permanent. That evening, Marcus picked Jack up from school and drove to the mall. The fundraiser gala was in 2 weeks, and Jack needed something appropriate to wear. They spent an hour in the boys' department, Jack trying on dress pants and button-down shirts, while Marcus evaluated the balance between looking nice and allowing for normal 7-year-old movement. They finally settled on navy pants, a white Oxford shirt, and a clip-on bow tie that Jack found hilarious.
"I look like a penguin."
"A very handsome penguin." Jack examined himself in the mirror, practicing serious expressions. "Will there really be other kids there?" "That's what Diana said. They have activities set up so kids don't get bored during the speeches." "Is Diana your friend now?" The question surprised Marcus with its directness. "I think so, yeah. Why?" Jack shrugged, still looking at his reflection. "She seems lonely, like she needs friends." Out of the mouths of children came observations that cut to the heart of things adults danced around. Diana was lonely. Profoundly, visibly lonely in ways she tried to hide beneath competence and authority. Jack had seen it in a single afternoon, recognized it with the clarity of someone who knew what absence felt like. "Yeah, buddy, I think she does." They bought the outfit and stopped for burgers on the way home, Jack chattering about the gala and whether there would be dessert and if he'd be the youngest kid there. Marcus listened with half his attention, while the other half processed the implications of whatever this friendship with Diana was becoming. It felt important, though he couldn't articulate exactly why. Maybe because they'd both lost partners, both raised children alone, both understood the particular loneliness of being the only adult in the room when your kid asked questions you didn't know how to answer. Or maybe it was simpler.
two people who'd been forced by circumstance to let their guards down just enough to see each other clearly. The next day at work, Marcus found a note on his desk, handwritten, signed this time. You think you won, but this isn't over. People see what you really are. He stared at the words, anger rising hot in his chest. This was beyond professional disagreement or even personal resentment. This was harassment, deliberate and ongoing despite HR interventions and written warnings. Marcus took the note directly to Linda Morrison. Kyle? Linda's expression was grim as she examined the handwriting. Has to be. Same pattern as the texts. Same tone. We'll need to verify the handwriting. If it matches samples in his personnel file, this is grounds for immediate termination. Linda pulled out a form. I'll need you to write down exactly when and where you found this, who else might have seen it, whether anything else unusual has happened. Marcus spent 20 minutes documenting everything, the note, the previous texts, the meeting where Kyle had accused him of retaliation. Linda took notes, her pen moving quickly across the page. This is escalating. That concerns me. She set down her pen. I'm going to recommend immediate suspension while we investigate. And I want to loop in security about the threats. They may want to review building access logs, make sure there haven't been any after-hours incidents. The investigation moved quickly this time. By noon, handwriting analysis confirmed that Kyle had written the note. Security footage showed him entering the building at 6:30 that morning, 40 minutes before Marcus usually arrived, and spending 15 minutes on the 22nd floor near Marcus's desk. Linda called Kyle in at 2 o'clock. Marcus wasn't present for that conversation, but he heard about it from Jamie an hour later. They escorted him out. Like security walked him to his desk, watched him pack his stuff, and marched him out of the building. Jamie's voice held a mixture of satisfaction and unease. It was brutal to watch. What did he say? Nothing at first. Then, right before he got on the elevator, he turned and looked right at you. Well, at your desk, you weren't there. And just stared for like 10 seconds. It was creepy as hell. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the office air conditioning. Kyle had been fired for cause. His career at Hartwell Global permanently ended. His professional reputation damaged in ways that would follow him, and he blamed Marcus for all of it. Do you think he'll do something? Jamie's concern was obvious. I don't know. Hope not. But hope wasn't the same as certainty, and Marcus spent the rest of the day with a low-grade anxiety that wouldn't dissipate. He mentioned it to Diana during their weekly check-in, and her response was immediate and decisive. I'll have security monitor the situation. If Kyle attempts to enter the building or contact you, they'll intervene. Diana pulled out her phone and sent a quick message. You'll also get a security escort to your car for the next few weeks, until we're confident there's no threat. That seems excessive. It's proportional to the risk. Kyle has demonstrated escalating hostility and poor impulse control. We take employee safety seriously. Her tone left no room for argument. That evening, a security officer Marcus didn't recognize walked him to his car in the parking garage. The officer was professional but thorough, checking the vehicle before Marcus got in and watching until he'd driven out of the garage. Marcus told Jack about the security escort that night, framing it as a temporary precaution after a workplace disagreement. Jack accepted the explanation with the adaptability of childhood, already moving on to more important topics, like whether they could get a dog someday, and if superheroes were real in any universe. The weeks leading up to the gala passed without incident. Kyle didn't attempt contact, didn't show up at the building, didn't send any more messages. The security escort gradually felt less like protection and more like company policy being overly cautious,
Marcus's work continued to earn recognition. The board approved the cost reduction recommendations, praising the thorough analysis and strategic thinking. 2 other departments requested similar assessments, expanding Marcus's portfolio and influence. Diana promoted one of his initiatives, flexible scheduling for working parents, to a company-wide pilot program. The night of the gala arrived with the first real cold of autumn, temperatures dropping into the 40s and a wind off the harbor that cut through layers. Marcus dressed carefully in the suit he'd bought for Sarah's funeral and hadn't worn since. Charcoal gray, tailored, still fitting well enough, though he'd lost weight in the past 2 years. Jack wore his new outfit with exaggerated seriousness, practicing his handshake and his "pleased to meet you" in the mirror. They drove into Manhattan together, Jack bouncing with excitement despite Marcus's repeated reminders about indoor behavior and not running at formal events. The gala was held at the New York Public Library, the main building with its iconic lion statues and marble halls. Marcus had never been inside for an event like this. He'd brought Jack for story time once, but that had been in a different wing, nothing like the transformed space they entered now. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in white linen. A string quartet played in the corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The room was filled with people in evening wear, the women in gowns and the men in tuxedos that made Marcus's suit feel inadequate despite its quality. Jack's eyes went wide. Whoa. Remember what we talked about. Use your indoor voice, stay close, and if you need to go to the kids' area, tell me first. I will. Can I have one of those? Jack pointed to a waiter passing with a tray of something wrapped in phyllo dough. They made their way through the crowd to the Hartwell Global table near the front. Diana was already there, wearing a navy gown that somehow made her look both more formal and more approachable than her usual suits. She smiled when she saw them. Marcus, Jack, I'm glad you made it. Jack executed his practiced handshake. Thank you for inviting us, Miss Hartwell. Please, call me Diana. We're not at the office. She gestured to the table. The children's area is through those doors if you'd like to explore, Jack. There are games and activities, and someone will bring you back when dinner starts. Jack looked to Marcus for permission. At Marcus's nod, he headed toward the indicated doors with only slightly more speed than qualified as walking. Marcus sat down beside Diana, suddenly aware of how out of place he felt in this world of formal fundraisers and easy wealth. The other people at their table were executives he recognized from the management floor, all of them comfortable in evening wear and social situations that came with unspoken rules Marcus had never learned. Diana seemed to sense his discomfort. First gala? That obvious? Only to someone looking. You're doing fine. She poured water from the pitcher on the table and handed him a glass. These events are tedious, but necessary. Smile at the right moments, applaud when others do, and make a modest donation when they ask. That's the entire playbook. The evening proceeded as she'd described, speeches about the hospital's work, video presentations of children who'd been helped, testimonials from parents whose gratitude was palpable even through the formal structure of the event. Marcus found himself genuinely moved by the stories, thinking about Jack and how fragile children were, how much they depended on adults to keep them safe. During dinner, Jack returned from the kids' area long enough to eat before disappearing again. The adults at the table made conversation about quarterly projections and market trends, topics Marcus could engage with but found draining in this context. He contributed when appropriate but mostly observed, watching Diana navigate the social dynamics with the same precision she brought to business negotiations. After dinner, there was dancing. Marcus hadn't danced since his wedding, wasn't sure he remembered how. But Diana stood and extended her hand. One dance.
It's tradition for the table hosts. Marcus took her hand and let her lead him to the floor. The quartet had been replaced by a small orchestra playing something slow and formal. Diana positioned them correctly, her hand light on the shoulder, his hand uncertain at her waist. Just follow the rhythm. Don't overthink it. They moved awkwardly at first, Marcus too conscious of his feet and the people watching, but Diana was patient, guiding him through the basic steps until muscle memory took over and thinking became unnecessary. See? You're a natural. I'm really not. You're doing what's needed. That's close enough. Diana's voice was quiet, meant only for him.
Thank you for coming tonight. It means something, having people here who understand what these events are really about.
Which is?
Remembering what matters. All the money raised tonight goes to families who can't afford care for sick children. 5 years ago, I would have written a check and skipped the event. Now I understand why being present matters. Marcus thought about Nathan, about the grief Diana carried that made her both harder and softer than she appeared. Nathan would be proud of you. Diana's step faltered briefly, then recovered. I hope so. I like to think he'd forgive me for the years I wasn't there enough. Kids forgive easier than adults. They love without keeping score. Your son certainly does. The way he talks about you, it's clear he thinks you're his hero. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I'm just trying not to fail him. Trying not to fail is how most of us succeed. The ones who fail are the ones who stop trying. Diana pulled back slightly as the song ended. Thank you for the dance. They returned to the table where Jack was already waiting, chocolate from some dessert smeared on his collar. Marcus produced a napkin and worked at the stain while Jack wriggled and protested. The evening wound down gradually. People began leaving around 10, offering polite goodbyes and promises to connect later. Marcus was gathering their coats when Diana stopped him. There's one more thing. She pulled an envelope from her small clutch purse. The hospital asked me to give this to major donors. I wanted you to have it. Marcus opened the envelope to find a card with a photo of a young girl, maybe 5 years old, holding a stuffed animal. Below the photo was a message. Thank you for helping me get better. Love, Emma. They send these to everyone who contributes over a certain amount. I thought Jack might like to see that his attendance tonight helped someone. Marcus showed the card to Jack, whose face lit up with the uncomplicated joy of childhood altruism. We helped her? We did, buddy. We all did. They left together, Diana walking them to the valet station where Marcus had parked. The night was colder now, the wind sharper. Diana pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders. Drive safe. And Marcus? She hesitated, then continued. Thank you. For being here. For bringing Jack. For being willing to let me be part of your lives in some small way. It's not small. And you're welcome. Diana watched their car pull away, and Marcus saw her in the rearview mirror, standing alone in the light spilling from the library entrance. She looked smaller than usual, less imposing, just a woman who'd lost too much and was trying to figure out how to live with the empty spaces. The following Monday, Marcus arrived at work to find a memo from Diana announcing a new children's hospital partnership. Hartwell Global would be matching employee donations and providing paid volunteer time for staff who wanted to support the hospital's programs. The memo credited Marcus with inspiring the initiative through his commitment to family values and community engagement. Jamie stopped by his office mid-morning. Did you see Diana's announcement? This is huge, Marcus, like company legacy huge. I didn't do anything.
Just showed up at a fundraiser. You did more than that. You helped her remember why any of this matters. Jamie gestured around at the office. Before Nathan died, she was known for her philanthropy. After, she just disappeared into work. This is the first time she's engaged with anything outside business in 5 years. Marcus hadn't known about Diana's previous charitable work, but it made sense. The person she'd been before loss reshaped her had probably been very different from the Ice Queen reputation she'd built since.
The weeks that followed brought a rhythm that felt almost normal. Marcus led his team through increasingly complex projects. Diana continued to implement family-friendly policies that changed the company's culture incrementally, but meaningfully. Jack thrived in school and soccer, his life blessedly uncomplicated by adult concerns. Thanksgiving approached, Marcus's first as director and his third without Sarah. Mrs. Sullivan invited them for dinner, as she had the previous 2 years, and Marcus accepted gratefully. The thought of cooking a turkey for just the two of them, of sitting across from Jack at their small table with Sarah's chair empty, felt unbearable. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, Diana sent an unexpected email. "I'm having a few people over for Thanksgiving dinner, very casual. Would you and Jack like to join us?" Marcus read the email 3 times, surprised by the invitation and uncertain how to respond. Diana hadn't mentioned other holiday plans, hadn't suggested she did anything for Thanksgiving beyond treating it as a long weekend to catch up on work. He called her office, and Margaret put him through immediately. "I got your email. Are you sure? Mrs. Sullivan already invited us." "Of course, if you have other plans, I understand completely." Diana's voice had that careful quality again, the sound of someone extending herself beyond comfortable boundaries. "I just thought, since neither of us has traditional family to celebrate with, it might be nice to share the day." Marcus made a decision. "We'd like to come. Let me talk to Mrs. Sullivan, see if she wants to come too. Would that be okay?" "Absolutely. The more the merrier, as they say." Marcus called Mrs. Sullivan next, explaining the situation. She was quiet for a moment, then spoke with that wisdom that came from living through enough loss to understand its landscape. "Diana Hartwell is reaching out, Marcus. That's not something she does lightly. You should go, and take Jack. I'll be fine with my sister in Queens." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Sometimes people need to build new traditions. Sounds like both of you do." Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and clear, the kind of late November day where the sky was brilliant blue, but the air had teeth. Marcus and Jack drove to Diana's apartment in the Upper East Side, Jack clutching a pumpkin pie they'd bought at the bakery near their building. Diana's building was everything Marcus expected: doorman, marble lobby, elevator that moved silently and smoothly to the penthouse level. She answered the door in jeans and a sweater, the most casual Marcus had ever seen her, her hair loose instead of pulled back. Come in. You found it okay?" The apartment was enormous, all windows and light, furnished in the kind of understated elegance that came from hiring professionals. But there were also signs of life Marcus hadn't expected. Framed photos on the mantel, a blanket draped over the couch, a half-finished crossword puzzle on the coffee table. Jack gravitated immediately to a wall of photos, most of them featuring a young boy at various ages. Nathan. Marcus could see the resemblance to Diana in the shape of his face, the serious expression, even in candid shots. Diana came to stand beside Jack. "That's my son, Nathan. He loved soccer, just like you." "He looks nice." "He was. Very nice. Very smart. Very stubborn when he decided he wanted something." Jack studied the photos with the careful attention he gave to things that mattered. "Do you miss him?" The directness of the question would have paralyzed most adults, but Diana answered with equal simplicity. "Every day. but remembering him doesn't hurt as much as it used to. Talking about him helps. Jack nodded, satisfied with this explanation, in the way children were when adults told them truth instead of comfortable lies. He returned to examining the photos while Diana and Marcus moved to the kitchen. Diana had cooked, actually cooked, not ordered catering or hired help. The turkey was in the oven, filling the apartment with familiar smells. Vegetables were prepped on the counter. A homemade pie cooled on the windowsill.
I haven't done this in 6 years. Not sure I remember how.
Diana's hands moved with practiced efficiency despite her words, chopping celery for stuffing.
You're doing fine. Need help?
Can you peel potatoes? They worked side by side in the kitchen, falling into an easy rhythm. Jack set the table under Diana's direction, carefully placing silverware and folding napkins into shapes that sort of resembled turkeys. The afternoon passed in the kind of comfortable domesticity Marcus hadn't experienced since Sarah was alive.
They ate around 3, the table laden with more food than 3 people could reasonably consume. Diana said a brief grace, her voice catching slightly when she mentioned those who couldn't be with them. Then Jack immediately asked if he could have both kinds of cranberry sauce, and the moment passed into the pleasant chaos of a shared meal. After dinner, while Jack watched a movie in the living room, Marcus and Diana cleaned up together. They moved around each other easily now, no longer carefully avoiding proximity. Diana washed while Marcus dried, their conversation wandering from work to Jack's school to memories of past Thanksgivings. Sarah always made too much food. She'd invite anyone who didn't have family plans, co-workers, neighbors, that guy who delivered our mail. One year, we had 11 people crammed into our tiny apartment. Marcus smiled at the memory. She said holidays were meant for gathering strays. She sounds like she was wonderful. She was. Patient in ways I'm not. Social in ways I'll never be. Good at making people feel welcome. Marcus set down the dish he'd been drawing. I miss her. But it's different now. Less like drowning, more like living with a limp. Diana was quiet for a moment, hands still in the soapy water. That's a good way to describe it. You learn to walk differently, compensate for what's not there anymore. Yeah, exactly that. They finished the dishes and joined Jack in the living room. Diana sat on one end of the couch, Marcus on the other. Jack sprawled between them with his head on a cushion. The movie played, something animated that Jack had seen a dozen times but still found entertaining. None of the adults paid much attention, content to sit in comfortable silence. Around 7, Jack fell asleep, his small body going heavy with the particular exhaustion of childhood contentment. Marcus started to wake him, but Diana stopped him with a hand on his arm. Let him sleep a bit. We can talk. So they talked, voices low to avoid disturbing Jack. Diana told stories about Nathan, his obsession with dinosaurs at age 4, his determination to learn piano despite having no musical talent, his habit of asking questions that required hours of research to answer properly. Marcus shared memories of Sarah, of the ways she'd balanced his tendency toward seriousness with her own lightness, her insistence on finding joy even in difficult times. The conversation wound through grief and memory, through the practical challenges of single parenthood and the moments of unexpected grace. Diana admitted she'd been seeing a therapist for the past month, working through the guilt and regret that had calcified over 5 years. She asked me who I was before Nathan died. I couldn't answer. I'd built so much of my identity around being a mother that when that was taken away, I didn't know what was left. And now? Now I'm trying to figure out who I can be. Not who I was. That person is gone, but someone new. Someone who can carry the loss without letting it be the only thing that defines me. Diana looked at Marcus. You've helped with that. Seeing how you balance everything, how you show up for Jack even when it's hard, it's reminded me that healing doesn't mean forgetting. Marcus felt the weight of her words, the trust implicit in sharing them. I'm not doing anything special, just surviving, same as you. Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing we can do, especially when giving up would be easier. Around 8:30, Marcus woke Jack gently. They gathered their coats and the leftover pie Diana insisted they take home. At the door, Diana hugged Jack first, then Marcus, brief embraces that nevertheless felt significant. Thank you for sharing today with me. It was the best Thanksgiving I've had in years. Thank you for including us. Same. Driving home through the city streets quiet with holiday stillness, Jack spoke from the back seat, his voice thick with sleepiness. Dad, is Diana part of our family now? Marcus thought about the question, about the ways family could be chosen as well as born, about how grief sometimes brought people together in unexpected configurations. I think she's our friend, a really good friend. That's almost the same thing. Out of the mouths of children. Yeah, buddy, almost the same thing. December arrived with a kind of cold that made New York feel like it existed solely to test human endurance. Marcus threw himself into year-end projects, managing his team through the intensity of closing out annual budgets and preparing forecasts for the new year. The work was demanding, but his team rose to meet it, delivering analysis that exceeded expectations and set new standards for the department. Diana continued to transform the company's culture in ways both visible and subtle. The Family Flexibility Program expanded from pilot to permanent policy. She instituted transparent promotion criteria and regular skip-level meetings where anyone could voice concerns directly to executive leadership. Slowly, the Ice Queen reputation began to thaw into something more complex, a leader who was demanding but fair, cold in professional contexts, but capable of warmth in personal ones. Marcus's friendship with Diana deepened through regular Sunday dinners that became a ritual neither of them examined too closely. Sometimes Jack came, sometimes he stayed with Mrs. Sullivan, but Marcus always showed up at Diana's apartment with wine or dessert, and they spent hours talking about everything and nothing. One Sunday in mid-December, Diana asked about Christmas plans. Jack and I usually do something low-key, watch movies, eat too much candy, maybe go see the tree at Rockefeller Center. Would you consider spending Christmas Eve here? I'm hosting a small gathering, just a few people from the company who don't have family plans. Nothing formal. Marcus recognized the invitation for what it was. Diana building new traditions, creating family from the people who understood what it meant to navigate holidays with empty chairs at the table. We'd like that. Christmas Eve arrived with the first real snow of the season, fat flakes falling soft and steady. Marcus and Jack arrived at Diana's apartment to find a tree in the corner, decorated with lights and ornaments that looked vintage and well-loved. 4 other people were there already, Jamie Foster and her 2 kids, and Monica Reeves with her husband. The evening had a gentle quality Marcus hadn't anticipated. Children played while adults talked. The boundaries between work and personal life blurred in ways that felt natural rather than forced. Diana moved through it all with an ease Marcus had never seen her display at the office, laughing at kids' jokes and helping settle minor disputes with the wisdom of someone who remembered what it was to parent. Around 8, after the kids had eaten too many cookies and the adults had shared a bottle of wine, Diana called everyone to the living room. She prepared small gifts for each child, nothing extravagant, just thoughtful selections based on what she'd learned about them. Jack got a book about soccer legends that he immediately started reading. Jamie's daughter received an art set. Her son got a science kit about weather patterns. For the adults, Diana had something different. She stood by the tree, suddenly looking nervous in a way Marcus had never witnessed.
I wanted to say something. This year has been transformative for me in ways I didn't expect.
You've all reminded me what community means, what it looks like to show up for each other, not because policy requires it, but because people matter. Her voice wavered slightly. 5 years ago, I lost my son and decided the safest thing was to stop feeling anything. This year, you've helped me remember that feeling pain means I'm still alive, still capable of joy. Thank you for that gift. The room was quiet, everyone understanding they were witnessing something rare. Diana Hartwell being vulnerable, letting people see the person beneath the professional armor. Jamie spoke first, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for creating a place where we can be whole people, where being parents doesn't mean we're less committed to our work. Monica added, and thank you for showing us that strength includes admitting when we need help. Marcus didn't trust himself to speak without his voice breaking, so he just raised his glass. The others followed suit, and they drank to new beginnings, to chosen family, to the ways people healed each other without always meaning to. Later, after everyone else had left, and Jack had fallen asleep on Diana's couch again, Marcus and Diana sat by the tree with the lights casting soft shadows across the room. This was good. Really good. Diana's voice was quiet, reflective. Yeah, it was. I've been thinking about something. She turned to face him. About what comes next. I've spent 5 years building walls, and the past few months learning how to take them down. But I'm not sure what I'm building in their place. Marcus considered his response carefully. Maybe you don't have to know yet. Maybe it's okay to just exist in the space between who you were and who you're becoming. Is that what you're doing? Every day. Being Jack's dad, being your friend, doing work that matters. I'm figuring it out as I go. Some days I feel like I'm failing at all of it. Other days I think maybe I'm getting a few things right. Diana smiled, genuine and warm. You're getting more than a few things right. They sat in comfortable silence until Marcus gently woke Jack and gathered their things. At the door, Diana hugged them both, holding on a moment longer than necessary. Merry Christmas, Marcus. Merry Christmas, Jack. Merry Christmas, Diana. Driving home through streets transformed by snow into something cleaner and kinder than usual, Marcus thought about the year that was ending. It had started with a mistake, 3 words sent to the wrong person, and somehow transformed into something that felt like grace. New job, new friendship, new ways of understanding what family could mean. Jack stirred in the back seat. Dad? This was the best Christmas Eve ever. Yeah, buddy. It really was. The new year arrived with the usual corporate fanfare. Goals to set, budgets to finalize, strategic plans to implement. Marcus led his department through the planning process with confidence born from a year of proving himself. His team respected him, his superiors trusted him, and the work itself felt meaningful in ways that went beyond just earning a paycheck. In late January, Diana called him to her office. He'd learned to read her moods now, could tell from the careful neutrality of her tone that this wasn't routine. Close the door and sit down. Marcus did, and she slid a folder across the desk. The board is creating a new C-suite position, Chief Financial Operations Officer. It's essentially a promotion from CFO, overseeing all financial operations across divisions. They've asked me to recommend candidates. Marcus opened the folder to find a position description that was both exciting and terrifying. The responsibilities were enormous, the authority substantial, the salary nearly double what he made now. I'm recommending you. The words didn't immediately make sense. Diana, I've been a director for 6 months. This is C-suite. You're exactly qualified. You've transformed your department, delivered results that exceeded every metric, and demonstrated leadership that inspires rather than dominates. The board needs someone who understands both the technical side and the human side of operations. That's you. They'll say it's favoritism. Let them. The record speaks for itself. Besides, Diana's expression softened slightly. We're friends, Marcus. I'm not going to apologize for that or pretend it doesn't influence my judgment. But my judgment is also informed by data, performance metrics, and professional expertise. The friendship makes me more confident in the recommendation, not less. Marcus stared at the folder, his mind spinning through implications and possibilities. This would change everything. More security for Jack, the ability to build real savings, influence over policies that affected hundreds of employees. But also more pressure, more scrutiny, more chances to fail spectacularly. Can I think about it? Take the time you need. But Marcus, don't let fear keep you from becoming who you're capable of being. You've earned this. Believe that. He took the folder home and spent the weekend reviewing it while Jack played and Mrs. Sullivan offered her usual gentle wisdom. By Sunday evening, he'd made his decision. He called Diana that night. I'll do it. If the board approves, I'll take the position. Relief was clear in her voice. Good. You're going to do exceptional work, I'm certain of it. The board vote happened 2 weeks later. Unanimous approval. The announcement went out the next day, and this time the response was overwhelmingly positive. People who'd worked with Marcus recognized the promotion as deserved. Those who didn't know him personally could review his track record and see the justification. There was one note of dissent, an anonymous letter to the board, claiming the promotion was based on Marcus's personal relationship with Diana rather than merit. The board investigated, reviewed all the documentation, and dismissed the complaint as baseless. But Marcus knew who'd sent it. Kyle's final act of resentment lobbed from outside the company where he no longer had to worry about consequences. Marcus chose not to let it diminish the achievement. He'd earned this position through work that spoke for itself. The fact that friendship had influenced the timing didn't negate the substance. The transition to the new role took a month. Marcus hired his replacement as director, mentored her through the handoff, and gradually assumed the broader responsibilities of the CFOO position. The work was even more demanding than he'd anticipated, but also more rewarding. He had genuine influence now, the ability to shape policies and processes that affected how people experienced their work lives. 6 months into the role, Marcus attended a children's hospital fundraiser with Diana and Jack. It had become a regular occurrence, the three of them showing up together at events, moving through social situations with the ease of people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. At this particular event, a photographer asked if he could take their picture for the hospital newsletter. They posed together, Diana in the middle, Marcus and Jack on either side, and the resulting photo captured something Marcus hadn't expected. They looked like a family. Not identical to the family he'd had with Sarah, not a replacement for what Diana had lost with Nathan, but something new and equally real. The photo ended up on the hospital's website with a caption about Hartwell Global's ongoing support. Marcus saved a copy on his phone, showed it to Jack, who studied it with his characteristic seriousness. We look happy. We are happy. Good. You should be happy all the time, Dad. You and Diana both. A father was never too tired to love his child, but he could be tired enough that the love felt like weight instead of wings, until someone helped him remember that carrying each other made the load lighter. Marcus looked at the photo again, at the three faces captured in a moment of genuine joy, and thought about the year that had brought them here. One misplaced text message, 3 words that had meant comfort for his son, but had become the catalyst for transformation none of them could have predicted. I miss you. The words still meant what they'd always meant, but they also meant something new now. A reminder that missing someone didn't mean you stopped living, that grief could coexist with joy, that the people who came into your life after loss weren't replacements, but additions, new chapters in stories that had seemed finished. Diana sent him a text that evening. "Today was good. Thank you for being part of this journey." Marcus replied, "Thank you for inviting us along." He set the phone down and went to find Jack, who was building an elaborate Lego structure that would probably fall apart before morning, but represented hours of focused joy. Marcus sat on the floor beside him, handing him pieces when requested, present in this moment that was ordinary and precious precisely because of its ordinariness. Tomorrow he'd go back to work, navigate the complexities of his new role, make decisions that affected hundreds of people's lives. But tonight, he was just a father sitting with his son, building something together in the comfortable silence of home. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.